think that's right. Yeah, right up to that.
Usually the city, yeah, electric and water's around there, around 15 to 17, I believe, offhand. So,
Well, I'll ask again, are we gonna be able to sit down, you and I, and Roger and Eric? We've got some issues that we feel we need to get clarification on.
can I go through the history of how this all came about first,
Sure, go ahead.
just for public knowledge?
I'm sorry, I thought you were.
No, that was just for that.
Okay.
So when this all began, the problem was the city pool was leaking a lot of water. The city needed a new pool, and it was costing them approximately $80,000 a year to operate with lost water and.
That's incorrect. It was the average for the last 7 years of operation was $26,175 per year.
Okay.
I do not have this information with me, but I've got the spreadsheet for all the years of operation.
Okay, well, you told us in the meeting it was costing $40,000 a year in lost water and $40,000 a year in labor.
I apologize, sir, I don't remember stating that.
Estimated to cost between $2.5 to $3 million to replace. It was similar, I think they were looking at something similar to Hillsborough, which was pushing $3. The mayor at the time felt that they could not raise taxes, and if they could not raise taxes, it would not pass a ballot initiative. The school essentially was willing to work together. We did the city a favor because the school did not need a pool. Part of the interest in collaborating was that they wanted to tie the building of the pool to the school, because essentially if it was a school project, it was subject to 32% state aid from the school finance towards the bond. For this reason, and I know there's been lots of rumors that the city at one time wanted to take over the pool, but this must always stay a school-controlled facility. Otherwise, the people will not be very happy because they paid 32% of the bond.
Where'd that rumor come from? Who started that rumor?
Day one of Aaron Holmberg's, tenure here, Roger Holter walked in the door, introduced himself, and spent the first hour trying to convince him to give the pool to the city of Marion. The school, however, was interested in a location. It was a good location for the gymnasium, and that was part of the collaboration. City, so where the 100,000 came up with, the city said, we can't raise taxes, but we feel like we can budget 100,000 a year until it's paid for. School was finishing up payment on their middle school project, which was started in '98, and so this entire proposal was sold to the public on the fact that we can build this project and we can keep taxes, the tax rate the same, and we can just move forward another 18 years. But that was only possible with the city's yearly contribution of $100,000 towards the pool.
And what was the tax rate?
The tax rate at the time, I do not know that.
It's 10.34 or something like that.
I believe it.
I got it, yeah.
I know 2014, it was, for bond and interest, it's 10.88 mil. That's what went to bond and interest. Okay.
This measure passed by 1,009 to 349 votes, 74%. 221% of the no's, or 221 or 63% of the no's came from outside the Marion city limits. Passed the bond for $8 million. Lee had been saving ahead for several years, knowing that there was a project possibly coming. And somehow he saved enough to pay $1.5 million cash out of capital outlay when it started. So it was a $9.5 million project. The bids, so they quizzed, and nobody's pointing any fingers, but they quizzed the architect. They said, is this enough money? Are we good to go to the election? And he said, yes. I think part of the issue when this all happened was, if you remember when steel went sky high, about the same time was when China was building their Olympic Center, and they were buying every scrap of iron in the world. The bids came in significantly higher, to the tune of $1.5 to $2 million overrun on this project. That was using a general contractor. That is where Lee Leiker decided to use construction management. And they opted to use Hutton with that, where they were involved in all of the bid letting and opening and everything.
Okay.
By doing that, they were able to drop the price back to $10 million. this is the first school district to ever do this in the state of Kansas. It was so successful that Lee went around after the fact and trained several other schools on how to do the construction management rather than hire a general contractor. They got to this point and they were still approximately 600,000 over. They were one day away from this entire project falling through because of the budget overrun, and they had the votes to pay it back the next day. They actually found the money by relooking. This was with Hutton and the architect, and Hutton said, well, maybe we can look at the red iron cost at the SAC, because the pool was essentially a big issue because they were running the trusses a certain direction, and they said we couldn't understand why they wanted to pour the pool first. Then they had to fill it with sand to grab the crane across the top, and then they had a whole bunch of liability that was involved with that, and I think this whole orchestra cost about $750,000 to install these trusses over the top of the pool. So they sat down and they said, let's look at the red iron. They called the architect and they said, what if we ran the red iron the other direction? Because the architect's program is set up so that it builds the building the cheapest way possible, but it doesn't account for the incidentals of having to do different things to get it accomplished. He called back and he said, we can do that. It's gonna cost $95,000 extra to go that direction, but you're saving $750,000 by not having to go across the pool. So they squeezed the money out of it and it was ready to go. One thing that Lee mentioned that the beauty part about dealing with Hutton on this whole project was, there was one instance where, concrete bids came in and they were way too high. And Hutton specializes in concrete, and he looks at the bids and he said those are way out of whack, and he offered to pour the concrete for $250,000 less. He said that was just one savings of using those guys. The initial discussions had an indoor-outdoor pool. Final presentation to the public, however, was how it was finally built, with the doors, the sliding doors. The city wanted to add the outdoor kiddie pool. School told them they were up against a tight budget and they needed to pay a little more. Lee's recollection, and I'm unable to track it down exactly how the funding went on that, but Lee said, I'm pretty confident we paid for half of the pool with the city, the outdoor pool. And he also felt like, he said, I'm pretty confident that the slide was part of the architect's drawing. So I know we talked about the slide, and I know that has nothing to do with the local agreement, but he felt like whatever you guys paid extra was just for the outdoor pool, because they had kind of cut that out.
$145,000.
I've seen 89,000, I had some minutes where Mayor Olson talked about 92,000, and then I got an email, one of these emails where Mr. Holter talked about 89,000. That was an email in July.
I was present and it was $145,000.
Okay.
For the spray features. The spray features, as I recall, was included in the original architect, estimate, I guess I said. And when they came out with the cost overruns like you're talking about, then they came back to the city and asked for an additional funds for the spray features in the slide.
Okay.
So that's how that actually occurred.
I remember that.
Yeah.
So the final breakdown, Fine Arts Complex is 2.9 million, $2,441,800 was financed. Gymnasium was $4 million, $3,368,000 was financed. The indoor pool was 2.6 million, $2,189,200 was financed. That was $9.5 million total. $7,999,000 was financed with the bond. And I assume that they broke that down based off the capital outlay that the school had put in, and they just prorated it out all across the board. One thing that we will contend is the $297,863 savings from bond refinance has been retained solely by the taxpayers, not the school district. And one other final note, that the school paid $27,000 for solar panels for heat only that's on top of the building. And I think that's been a huge savings on the bills that we've presented you with, because after a year or two, Randy Dalton, who's the Atmos guy, made the comment, he said, man, those things must really be paying off, because he said, your gas bill for the whole year is less than Hillsboro's gas bill for 3 months for their outdoor food. And the reason the school pays for that is because the architect was not in favor of it. He said they will never pay. Lee said, I've done the research. He said, I want them in the building, and so the school footed the bill for those, and actually Lee and Quinn Trapp installed them himself, so. And our yearly payments are $697,000 a year towards the bond. So essentially, I mean, it was created out of collaboration. I mean, we were doing the city a huge favor, you know, by wanting to make one project for the community. And I don't understand where the dispute has come in. I mean, we've done nothing wrong. I mean, we have nothing to hide. I could see if there was huge, let me see if I can find it. I could see if there was a huge increase in the bills that you guys are getting, but the average over the years is $37,000 a year. And if you don't count the first two, because there was some anomaly going on in those years. Starting in 2009, your bill was $41,037. The next year was $41,966. The next year was $36,562. The next year was $33,049. $36,068. $39,980. $39,201. $31,356. $33,894. $39,935. $33,966, and this year's $40,481 with some repairs. So, that's our stance. We have an agreement in place. We don't feel the need to change anything on that agreement. I mean, we're 3 years left of a 17-year deal. We don't feel the need to recreate the wheel at this point in time.
Do we wanna discuss what our issues is right now, or do
Yes.
you wanna meet?
Yes.
Okay, you do.
Yeah.
Okay, number one, if you have a copy of the interlocal agreement, which I have here in front of me.
Yep.
Terms and conditions, the superintendent of the district and the city administrator of the city are hereby authorized to execute one or more letters that by this reference shall become a part of this agreement, provided that such letters are signed by both parties and referenced in this interlocal agreement. The letters of understanding shall address issues related to sharing facilities and resources controlled or owned by both parties. We don't own any part of it. Subject to letters of understanding may address and include, but not limited to, the following: use of facilities, equipment, and personnel, access to facilities, equipment, and personnel, charges, costs, or fees, site improvements, maintenance responsibilities, duration of use or access, and times of dates of access. This was the interlocal agreement that was signed on 23rd of October 2006 by Martin Tice, then Mayor, and Rex Savage. As part of this interlocal agreement, we drafted a letter of agreement between David Mayfield, Marion City Administrator, and Lee Locker, Superintendent of the USD 408. Served as written documentation of procedures and payment dates regarding 50/50 shared expenses at the Aquatic Center. I'll go down to the last paragraph, and it states each invoice will be the net expenses for the 6-month period preceding the invoice. Net expenses will be determined by taking the revenue generated by pool membership and daily use and subtracting expenses incurred from pool staffing, maintenance, utilities, and supplies. A monthly accounting of the revenues and expenses will be provided to the city with each invoice. There is nothing in this that says we're to pay property taxes, and we're being billed for it.
You paid that bill in 15 and 16, and like I said, Aaron Holmberg walked in the door in 2017, and all of a sudden now we need to split the bill, 50,000 in the first of the year, and 50,000 in June. Now we're arguing to pay the building insurance.
It was a mistake. It's not in this agreement. So,
If we have-
we've asked to meet and sit down and redo this agreement, and we can't get to the table. I don't understand why that is. Are you,
The only reason that was added was when you guys got a bad recommendation to deny $2,200 last fall. We're willing to say,
okay, so
okay.
basically that's retaliation, because we had a question about
We
this.
started going back through the bills, and we're like, well, wait a minute, they paid the building insurance here, but they didn't here. Lee Liker added that in after several years because because the maintenance on the building, if we have an insurance claim on the building, how are you guys gonna be involved if you're not paying the premiums on the building insurance?
We're not required to. I just read it to you. Net expenses will be determined by taking the revenue generated by pool membership and daily use and subtracting expenses incurred from the pool staffing, maintenance, utilities, and supplies. There is nothing there
Okay, so
that
building
says we owe for
insurance,
that.
building insurance, what else was you
Now,
talking
that
about?
was brought up at the December 17th meeting, and I read that to Aaron, and Aaron said, well, I guess if we don't, we don't owe that, you don't owe that, then you don't have to pay it. Now, your position's changed from that since the December 17th meeting.
Is that in the bill that they just sent?
I'm quoting from what the paper said, happened in your board meeting, that you said we owed $9,000 for the property insurance. So we wanna dispute that, the only way we
That's
can
fine.
dispute it is by the interlocal agreement. So the interlocal agreement, which is dated October 23rd, 2006, has section 7 talks about dispute resolution. In the event of any dispute or difference arising by reason of this agreement or any provision or term thereof, or use of and or payment for any facility for the purpose of this agreement, the dispute and difference shall be resolved jointly by the city administrator and superintendent of the district. Such decision shall arrive at as expeditiously as possible. We've asked for meetings between Roger and Aaron for some time. It didn't happen until December
We've
17th.
instructed our employee not to have any private meetings with Mr. Holter, and that's why I'm coming here today, so that the reason that it has gotten this bad is because there's been too many closed door meetings. Everybody's got rumors floating around, I want this all out in public on what we need to discuss to move forward with this agreement.
Well, and that's why, when you were here last time, we asked for a meeting with the whole board, with your,
And we can still do that, I felt like
and that
after
would all
we,
be public,
we
there
had our,
wouldn't be anything.
yeah, we had our meeting last Monday, and I figured I'll get on the agenda and see what you guys are after.
We want to address a lot of the issues we have.
What issues?
I brought up to you and Aaron in the meeting that this interlocal agreement doesn't have any information whatsoever about the bond payment. And I said, we need to fix that. And you said, okay. But I asked you if you guys had a signed interlocal agreement that states we have to make the bond payment. Because we need documentation that allows us to do that. Our auditors and your auditors both reference this interlocal agreement, and they state 23rd of October 2006 as the reason to make the bond payment. But they don't have a copy of it. If they did, ours would probably say, you can't expend your taxpayers' money without some kind of documentation allowing for that.
It's in the audit report.
It's in the audit report, and it refers to this agreement. You want me to read it to you in its
I'm
entirety?
reading your audit report right here from 2019.
I understand that.
Approved unanimously.
But this interlocal agreement does not address the $100,000, and we need to fix that.
Okay.
And you're not willing to do that. You're not willing to come to the table, and
I'm at the
we need a
table.
new
I'm at the
interlocal
table.
agreement. Is
I'm
what
at
we
the
need.
table.
And once we get that, then our auditors can authorize us to make that $100,000 payment. If our auditors had a copy of this, I think they probably would say, that's not gonna cut it.
Our lawyer in Topeka looked through it and said there is an agreement, it is in full force. Every judge in the nation would side with the school district.
Mr.
For
Mayor,
what?
Point.
Huh?
Or what, the expenses or the bond
Yes,
or
the
what?
expenses,
If they have
informed
a
us, you have
con-
made a precedence by paying for 14 years without any dispute, and now there's a problem?
Well, I don't think anybody bothered to look at this thing. And why wouldn't you want to have a document that says we have to make that payment? That makes sense. And we're willing to sit down and
You should be able to
discuss
get
that
along without a
and,
piece of
and
paper.
do a new interlocal agreement. Because the documentation is not here that allows for that payment.
But Dave, it is in the audit from 2010 to 2019, and let me read it to you, just to make sure that you understand it.
I understand it completely.
Then why does
I've
it
read
say,
it.
why does the auditor say that we owe that 100,000 for 18 years, the life of the bond?
What do they refer
And
to?
split, it said,
What do they refer to that we make that payment? The
but it
interlocal
says the
agreement.
city agreeing to pay 100,000 annually to USD 408 for the life of the bond, and also splits net expenses each year equally with the school district, and to be reevaluated in 3 years. And it says in here that there's a signed agreement.
And the
Ruth,
signed
read the
agreement
entire thing,
says-
it references this interlocal agreement.
Yes,
It
Does it
doesn't
not?
mention-
but it says we owe
Read
it.
that portion.
We say, it says we owe it.
No, read the portion
According
where,
to the agreement.
yeah, read the portion where it says that it's authorized by an interlocal agreement dated
Okay.
October 23rd.
The city, along with USD 408, entered into an interlocal agreement on October the 23rd, 2006 regarding cooperative use of facilities, equipment, and personnel.
That's what they use to allow us to make the bond payment. It's incorrect. We need to fix it.
Well,
You don't wanna
we need
fix
to-
it, I don't know what to tell you. I
What do
mean,
you wanna change?
huh?
What do you wanna change?
We need to add that we'll make $100,000 payment.
Okay,
And,
we'll get our council together and write up a new agreement.
wouldn't it be simpler if we all if the four of us met? And then we could work it out, and then you can take it to your people and say, vote on
We
it,
don't wanna change
and we can vote on
anything,
it.
so we need to
If
know
you
what
wanna do it
guys
all in the
want.
room, I don't care.
We just need to know what you guys want changed.
That's gonna be changed. We're not gonna change the portion that we don't owe for property tax.
That's
And-
fine.
And in December, you guys voted to give your employees a Christmas bonus, which included part-time employees and full-time. We weren't consulted about that, and none of our employees got a Christmas bonus, yet we're expected to pay 50% of that.
Okay,
Dave, that would be insurance
so
instead
Christmas
of
bonus,
property
let
tax.
me write that
I'm
down.
sorry, what?
That would be insurance instead of property tax. We don't pay.
I'm sorry, we have property insurance, I stand corrected, and that's what I've talked about all night.
And I'd like to just interject this. It says that this is a pamphlet that was handed out by Roger. It's for elected officials. And it says the role of the city council, the mayor and the city council.
Well, now, wait a minute, we're not
Okay.
discussing, that's not an agenda item, we're not discussing that right now.
But you're wanting to draw in the administrators, and it says the city council makes the policies, not the administrator.
He hadn't made any policy. This policy was all made by our council and the school board.
He's not making a policy, we would have to vote on it.
I think I've heard rumor that Mr. Holter has made the comment that the letter agreement, December 31st of '08 that you signed, that you didn't have the authority to sign that because you weren't an elected official.
Who started that rumor? I wanna know. Who was the rumor among?
He sold it to one of our board members, specifically from his own mouth.
So you're saying Roger told one of your board members that?
Yes.
Well, who's the board member?
Jeremiah Lang.
Right? I don't know. Ball's in your court. What do you wanna do? I have on your note here, you say you will only agree to meet in public forum. Who is we?
We, the board,
When you wanna do it, tomorrow?
I don't know if that's enough to get scheduled for tomorrow, but
Or, okay. when are you guys willing to meet? Anytime?
Anytime.
Next week,
Huh?
next week.
It'll be about midday next week.
Next week,
Okay. Let us know.
you let us know. Monday?
Monday's fine with me. Monday.
We'll check our school schedule because, and make sure that everybody can be there, so.
Okay. Let us know, and I assume
Bring
we
your-
probably
bring your
wanna have a
demands.
late meeting, and we will need to notify the paper and the public that we're gonna have this meeting, so they can be involved.
Okay. That's fine.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Anybody have any questions, further questions?
I have one question, and
Sure.
I know it doesn't involve the pool, but there was also in a local agreement, correct me if I'm wrong, about the school paying us for the use of our softball and baseball
Recreation.
fields and stuff, and then when the new superintendent came on and said there's no contract for that, so they haven't paid it, is that correct?
That,
I believe that was rec, sorry if I can interject. That was a rec agreement and we're still waiting on an itemized bill for that.
Well, and it,
'Cause
you
our
know, I
auditors-
asked Aaron to check on that, and we gave him the budget for the Recreation Commission for the 4 years that he's refused to pay that, $8,000 a year. And did he contact the auditors and ask them?
I'll check on that for you.
Okay. I'll tell you, we contacted the auditors, and our information was that we did our due diligence,
Okay.
so, just to.
I think part of that was, I think we maybe brought that up in 14. Is that when they changed how your employee was? We were running her through the city.
Yeah, I can tell you the situation that happened is that, the recreation department was, it wasn't our department, it was the recreation commission. It was an entity by itself, and the city contributed $15,000 per year to help them fund it. And the school paid $8,000 a year toward Margot's salary. You know, Margot's here, so she can probably clarify that somewhat. But as I understand it, the auditors told the school and Mr. Liker, you can't do that because you're not paying for FICA and so on and so on. So he asked if we would take over recreation, bring it into the city, be a part of it, and so the school district children could continue to participate in our rec program, which would be a city rec program that's funded by taxpayers. And he agreed that you guys would pay $8,000 a year as a partnership to allow for that. And we've been refused that bill for 8 years. We're looking at $32,000 right now that we have not been able to collect because it's been denied every year. So that's one of the talking points we're gonna have also, and that was a part of my presentation earlier.
Okay.
I'm,